Hey there, welcome to Craft Central Designs, where I create unique and beautiful home and holiday decor. This tutorial I have for you this stunningly colorful ombre floral wreath. I created this one solely from bins of leftover florals from previous projects from over the years. Such a joyous wreath to create. I just love it. Welcome to Ultima channel today, and please consider subscribing, sharing this video, and commenting as well as leaving a thumbs up if you like this tutorial so my channel may grow and evolve, and I really appreciate that. Okay, let me show you how I created this beautiful, colorful ombre floral wreath. I have here a wreath frame, a floral foam wreath frame that I purchased at Hobby Lobby. I believe it's around 15.5 inches in circumference. And I gathered together a whole array of colorful flowers for my wreath. Now, these are all just pieces of leftover flowers from projects over the years. This is the greatest way to use those up to create a beautiful ombre wreath or rainbow wreath, whatever you want to call it. It's a beautiful wreath. Okay, so to help me along with my graduation of colors, I listed my colors in order that I wanted to place them in a clockwise manner around the wreath form. As you can see there, red, orange, yellow, green, blue, purple, orchid, pink, and the deep pinks, like as in the fuchsia color. Okay, so I have a lot of flowers here on my table, and I grouped them all together. Now, I am going to be using everything from larger flowers, such as the one you see in my hand there, hydrangeas, all the way down to small filler flowers. I'm using whatever I had in my floral stash, which happens to be about 3 bins full of florals. But I always save my leftover pieces of florals. I save the stems and I save the leaves. This is a great, great way to create a gorgeous wreath using some of those florals that are just sitting around in boxes or bins or whatever, method of storage you keep your flowers, your florals. Now I'm showing you a little bit here, samples of some of the flowers that I use. These are kind of a rusty orange, absolutely gorgeous. And as I mentioned, I use bigger flowers, medium-sized flowers, such as a rose bloom that I have in my hand there, all the way down to filler flowers, rosebuds, just whatever I could find. And I grouped together the color families, little tiny sunflowers there, and I just collected as many flowers as I thought would fill each of the color sections on the wreath. I did have my bins next to me just in case I needed more. So this was basically a guesstimation. Now some color groups I had more florals than others. So I knew I was going to have to be creative in how I made it work on some of those color families that I didn't have as many, such as this yellow. So I ended up using a sunflower, which was a little more of a golden yellow, and some of the lighter yellows along with some fillers. Now this was one of the color groups where I had a lesser amount of florals as opposed to like my purples and orchids and pinks. The pink family also, but not the deep pink. I always seem to have a lot of that color, but the lighter pinks. So I had to work a little harder to find enough florals. I didn't buy anything for this wreath. These were just florals left over from previous projects. And for that category, the pink category, I had mostly roses, but that's okay because I'm just mixing it up on this wreath and it turns out just beautiful. I have here my deeper pinks, and I have quite an assortment of different flowers for this deep pink category. There's that pretty one. I have 2 of those that I used on the wreath. So you can see I have quite a variety of different types of flowers and just some fillers as well. As I mentioned, I keep all those extra little pieces because you never know when they're going to come in really handy. And here I have the orchid color family. Lots of small bits and pieces of floral, some lavender there, which goes beautiful in that orchid category. Some other little fillers, just a whole array of different flowers. There's a little small purple hydrangea, but you get the idea. Just gather together everything that you have, and you might be surprised when you collect it just how much you have to do a wreath like this. I also have a blue category. Now notice I use a lighter blue, or it's a little bit more of a tealish blue. I just happen to have those in my stash. I don't even remember what I ever used a blue flower for, but I do have some blue ones, not a lot of different varieties, but I have enough to fill a section, and that's all that matters. So I have my blue category, and I have my purples. I have this pretty flower that's going to go on there. I have a small purple hydrangea, some other little purple flowers and fillers. So this wreath is going to be a color explosion, if you want to look at it that way. There's a purple rose, so pretty. And this wreath, as I mentioned, was just such a joy to make. It was just so fun. It was almost like putting together a puzzle in some kind of weird way. It just was like that. Okay, I have some green hydrangea there, and it's sort of more of the mossy green, but I really like that for this wreath. I am going to be using some greenery, but I'm not going to be thinking about how much I need or where to place it until the very end. And I have here some of my favorite greenery from Hobby Lobby every other week. It's 50% off. If you need to purchase florals are 40% off every other week at Hobby Lobby. You could also pick up florals at the Dollar Tree. Walmart has great florals. And Michael's, of course. Joann Fabrics as well. Here's some pretty ivy, Swedish ivy. It has some long stems, which you'll see what I do with that. I kind of wind them through the wreath. I have a couple of stems of those, but I didn't really need more than one. And then I have this stem. This was a big hydrangea bush that I got at 40% off from Hobby Lobby. I took off most of the hydrangeas, but it has some nice leaves on it. So I'm going to keep that handy to add some leaves to my wreath. All right, so now I have my wreath form here. Now I am going to divide my sections just so I have some sort of reference so that I stay on track. I have 9 different sections with 9 different color families of florals. So what I did was I divided my wreath in thirds, And then each of the thirds I divided in 3 sections. I just took a marker and I put a little mark on the top of the wreath form. You can do this or not do this, but I think it's helpful. It was helpful to me. And so I decided to just go ahead and do that to help myself out a little bit there. I have my Gorilla Hot Glue gun all plugged in, my wire cutters, and I have some scissors there, of course. I do use a very small screwdriver as well, if you want to include that in your list of supplies, and I'll explain that in just a minute. So I kept my list next to me, and I followed along in the order that I decided that I was going to place my florals on this wreath form. So I'm going to get that pesky sticker off of there and begin placing my flowers on the first section of my wreath. Now this wreath is not going to get a bow. I can't believe I'm saying that because that is a rare thing for me. I always put bows on my wreaths, but this one is just a standalone piece with florals only, and it just turns out stunning, and it doesn't even need a bow in the end. All right, so I am going to start applying my flowers. Now, per section, I always put the largest one in first. So that's what you see me doing here. I place my florals right down into the floral foam. Now, I'm going to be placing my florals along the inner perimeter and along the outer perimeter. Now, it isn't imperative that you get it the outer perimeter solid all the way to the very bottom of the wreath form, because I have a method of finishing off a wreath like this using a lot of leftover leaves. I'll show you that in a bit. First, I'm just going to apply the florals. I want to get my bed of florals down in all of the categories, the color categories, make sure everything is pretty much even around the wreath. And another thing that I want to try to do as I go along is to have my florals around, how could I say this? I want to say like level across the top. I don't want any deep gullies, if you will, or areas where the florals are too short. Because if you're going to have the hydrangeas poking up, you want to try and get the rest of your florals to be at the same level. If you were to hold your wreath up sideways and look across the top, you want to try and get your florals to be level across the top. If that makes sense. I hope I explained that well enough. Now I can see that I have my red filled in. I have some little rosebuds, some little baby filler flowers, a hydrangea, roses. Now I'm moving on to my orange section, and oh my goodness, this beautiful orange flower, it's kind of a rusty orange, absolutely gorgeous. I can't remember what I used this on. Now, my bins of flowers are also pieces that I decided to dismantle or take apart. So I'm really using florals from not only just leftover that I didn't use for projects, but ones that I took apart and decided one day I would use the florals again. So this is a great way to do that. All right, now I'm putting that gorgeous hydrangea in there. And notice how I put the flower on the top, but now I'm kind of sticking my hydrangea more off to the side. So you want to try and get your florals to cover as much from the inside all the way to the outside as possible. And then later on, no worries, we're going to fill in any little spaces or gaps with greenery or even some extra florals, whatever we need to do to fill the spaces. Again, as I mentioned, what you're trying to do now is just get your florals down in the color categories, fill as much space as possible. Then we worry about filling in any areas later. So now I'm adding some little orange filler flowers, and I got various shades of oranges going on here. Even some peachy colors. Just looks so beautiful when you put them all together. Doesn't have to match. Just something in the color family. Oh, it just, once you get all those colors down on the wreath form, it's just so pretty. I'm going to show you a little trick here in a little bit. For any of the flowers that you have that you're having a little bit of a problem, maybe your stems on the flowers are not very sturdy and you still want to use that flower, but you're not able to poke it through that floral foam. Now that floral foam wreath is very, very sturdy. So it's more dense than like a regular styrofoam. So you do have to have a pretty good sturdy stem to poke in there. So I'm going to give you a little trick here in a little bit on how you can add those flowers into the floral foam, the ones that are being stubborn or the ones that don't have a very strong stem. There's my labradoodles up at the side of the screen. She always manages to get in somehow in my videos. I'm going to have to show you how completely adorable she is in an upcoming video. Oh, she's so beautiful. My labradoodle. Okay, so I'm finishing up my orange section here. And notice that I use a dab of glue. Now, I personally am not concerned whatsoever if this wreath is on the outside, because I know how tight those flowers are fitting into that floral foam. And I'm also adding Gorilla Hot Glue, which I have a lot of faith in that glue. But if you want to add Aleene's tacky glue to the stems before you stick them in instead, feel free to do that. Either or, whatever you prefer. Now see how I'm bringing my flowers toward the inside? You don't want to look at your wreath in front of you once it's hanging up and be able to see on the inner perimeter that gold, what am I saying? That green styrofoam wreath form. You don't want to see it. Okay, now I'm showing you the trick. You see my little screwdriver? I poke it in, wiggle it around to open up the hole. Then I either put hot glue on the stem of my flower or I just squirt a little bit of hot glue right in the hole. That's a great trick. It's a very small, there I'm doing it again. See how I do that? It's a very small head screwdriver, very, very small. And then I just wiggle it around to open up the hole and poke your floral into the hole. And that's going to hold very nicely. Again, if you want to use Aleene's, feel free. Now you're going to notice around that outer perimeter, you're going to be seeing, even after I have everything applied, you're going to be seeing some area where if you were to look at the wreath from the side, you would be able to see the green floral foam. But I'm going to take care of that as promised And we'll talk about that in a bit. Using my screwdriver again, poking it right down in there. Now these little baby sunflowers had like virtually no sturdy stems, so I really had to improvise. And some of these florals along the way, you're going to have to improvise. I'm going to show you another trick as we go around the wreath. For any of the florals that you have that have like virtually no stem. Maybe they were snipped off from a previous project. Whatever, for some reason they don't have much of a stem. And I'm going to show you that there's a way to remedy that situation. By the way, as I go along, you see me cutting off a lot of greenery, but I'm going to be using that greenery. So now I'm starting on my yellow section, which I happen to have these little baby roses that are a combination of orange and yellow. So what a great graduation of color from the orange section to the yellow to use those. Now this is one of the sections where I had that very situation that I just mentioned, where some of my flowers had like virtually no stem. Now, initially, I tried to make it work, and you're going to see me doing that here. And then you're also going to see me backtrack a little bit, pull the flowers off in this yellow section. You'll see me do this soon. And rethink how I was going to do it. Like, see my sunflower? It came off of something. It's a little bit of a straw wreath stuck to the back of that sunflower. It has no stem. So initially I thought, okay, it'll be all right. I'll just glue it to the wreath frame. But no, that didn't work. And I'll tell you why. Because the flowers ended up being too shallow down inside of the wreath, especially next to those hydrangeas, which were so full. So here I am struggling, trying to make this work. By the way, I just love the application of this one single sunflower on this wreath. I love the idea that there are so many different types of flowers on this wreath. I have some really pretty little filler flowers there. Now those light yellow flowers, again, very little stem on those. I'm going to go back and take care of that. And I'm going to show you the remedy for that. Because probably if you're anything like me and you go and you look in your stash and you see what you have, you know, you're probably going to have a variety of different types of florals with long stems, short stems. Some may not have a sturdy stem. Just all types of scenarios. And I'm going to try and show you how to remedy that so that you can really utilize all those pieces of florals that you have from previous projects. And in my case, it's literally years. This is years of floral projects. It's so much fun using them. I've kind of been looking at those bins of flowers now for quite some time. And occasionally I do use something out of it, but this is really quite a beautiful project and quite a great use of those flowers. I'm still working on my yellow section here. I'm going to speed this process up a little bit in just a bit, but I'm just trying to give you an idea how to utilize your space on that wreath form. So I have a little bit of greenery in there too. That's fine. If along the way you have some greenery, that's awesome, because you're going to be adding it anyway. So now I'm moving on to the green, and this is like a mossy green, which I really love on this piece. So here I am adding my hole and putting a bit of hot glue inside of there, and I love this hydrangea. It's so pretty. This was from a stem from Hobby Lobby. Now you can really see how those yellow flowers are getting lost down in between the green and the orange. You see that? So you're going to see me here in a minute go back, pull off those yellow flowers, and how I'm going to add some floral stems or floral wire to those, and so I can insert them and bring them up so they will stand up higher on that wreath. I hope all of these tips are going to help you, not only with this wreath, but in the future. If you're doing any kind of wreath where you're applying florals, if the circumstances are not to your liking, there's ways to remedy situations. Sometimes it takes a little extra time, but that's okay, because if you're like me, you're intent on achieving the look that you have as your vision, and I'm willing always to do a little bit extra, as you may already realize about me if you follow my channel. So here again, lots of greenery. Now I'm thinking of how am I going to take these very pretty little green flowers and make them work, because these are some of the flowers, again, that just don't have a strong stem. So I was thinking, could I attach them to a piece of greenery? See how pretty those are? Okay, but I figured it out. Okay, so here we go. Notice something missing? Yeah, yellow flowers. Okay, so I took one of my stems that it was a part of a bush, and you notice everything is cut off of that, but I save things like this. I'm telling you, don't throw them in the trash. You never know when you could use them. So I'm going to snip off some of those very strong wires, and I'm going to create stems for my yellow flowers that are lacking a stem. Now what I'm going to do is just squirt some hot glue inside of that sunflower and stick that floral wire in there. Now I'm going to let those dry. Now all I have to do is just bend the wire in any direction I like to make that sunflower sit on that wreath just the way I want it to. And I'm going to do the same thing for these pretty yellow flowers. And this is the remedy to bringing my flowers up to the level of the other flowers on the wreath. First, I use a little bit of hot glue to hold it to that little piece of stem that was underneath the flower. And now I'm just going to take some floral wire and just wrap it around to bridge that gap where I put them together. And it's easy enough to just do this to create the length that you need for the stem so that it's at a proper level once it's on the wreath. See how perfect that is? Now I'm going to do those other two. Now I have them all done. I'm going to stick them in that floral foam, and you're going to see how this is going to bring them up to the level that I need them to be so they don't get lost down inside of there. Now remember, I'm working with what I have. I didn't go out and buy any flowers. So every little obstacle I encounter, that's my little silicone sheet from the Dollar Tree, and do I ever use that? I'm making it work with whatever I have. Now see how that sunflower now is up to the level of the rest of the wreath. That's what I needed. I needed those yellows to be up where you could really see them. See the difference that made? Now you can see them. Very good. Problem solved. Crisis averted. A floral crisis. And there goes my dog again. Okay, so we're moving right along here on the wreath. We have red, orange, yellow, and green category all taken care of. And now we're moving on to blue. I'm using those, they're a blue, but they're almost like a tealish blue. But that was okay with me because I think they're such a pretty color that I'm going to use them in the blue category. And I don't have a lot of blue flowers. You don't have too much calling to use blue flowers. So I'm using what I have here. And this will suffice. It works very well for the section. Now I'm keeping my eye on my sections, making sure that they're approximately even, but it's not imperative that they're inch by inch even. It'll all look beautiful in the end. There's some of those little flowers that I'm going to have to create some kind of stem to place those little flowers on because I don't really have much of a stem on them. The blue ones that I'm doing right now do, but those other actual blue flowers don't. So I had to be creative and come up with something for that. Now I'm going to fill that area with blue, which I've done right there. So now we're moving on to purple. I have a nice, chunky, pretty flower going in right there. I love the big flowers on here and the combination of those along with the smaller flowers and then the filler flowers and then the beautiful greenery that we're going to be placing on there, especially the Swedish ivy, which I love on a wreath. I have a little piece of purple hydrangea there. I'm going to fill that. It's easier to fill the sections, obviously, if you have bigger flowers. But I think it's important to mix it up. I think that's what gives this wreath such visual interest. Now, what I'm doing there is I stuck something in there, then I decided to pull it out. After I hot glued it, let me tell you, if you think things aren't going to stick well in here, trust me, they do. I had to struggle trying to pull that back out. I wanted to rearrange something, and I was like, oh my goodness. Once it's in there, it's in there. And I have some more of those pretty flowers that I had to create stems for. And here's an example of how I did it. Again, I took one of those pieces that once everything was snipped off, I have nothing but floral wires. And so what I decided to do was wrap my little flower stems around those floral wires. And this worked like a charm. And after I got done wrapping those, I just took some green floral wire and I just wrapped it at the stem to keep it all collected. And I made a beautiful little flower grouping by just using a stem with a bunch of stems, if you will, that, I could have discarded into the trash, but I didn't. And now look how they helped me out. So I'm wrapping the floral wire around there now and see what I have. So you can make it work no matter what your flowers look like or the length of them as you take them out of your storage bins. All right, now it's time for orchid. And I have a lot of different types of flowers here. For this one, I have lavender. I have some fun, I don't know what the name of all these flowers are, but they're little filler flowers, and they're just so pretty. They really add something to this wreath. I love the lavender. Actually, wish I would have had a little bit more of that. Now, if you want to create this same wreath with a smaller wreath form, as I mentioned at the beginning, you could very well do that and do this whole project from Dollar Tree. Just go to their floral department. Some Dollar Trees have bigger floral departments than other. So choose one that has a good amount of flowers and take your list of colors that you're going to need and just purchase your flowers at the Dollar Tree. And you can make a nice little ombre wreath from florals from the Dollar Tree. It's just going to be a little bit smaller than the one I created, but that's fine. Here's a pretty little pieces that I was going to add to this wreath. Those little look like little I don't know. See what's the little balls? What word am I trying to think of here? I'll think of it. I'll think of it. I have a few different types of roses here. And again, I have that same really pretty flower there that I just set aside. I had gotten those at Michael's, I want to say 10 years ago. And they were one of my favorite flowers from Michael's. And you'll notice that I had those in every color for this wreath. Those ones that I'm talking about right there, what word am I trying to think of for that? Not seeds, but little pods, or I'm not really sure. Call it what you like. They're pretty for this wreath. And they add a nice little different texture. And I had to put those on a wire because they just didn't have much of a stem on them. But again, make it work. Love these pink rosebuds. They're slightly opened, so they're even more beautiful. I added some filler flowers. Here we have our pink section. And last but not least, yes, we are almost around the wreath. It's time for the fuchsia colors, which is one of my favorite colors in the world. And I have quite an assortment. I have a pretty deeper pink rosebud there, partially open. I have a few different types of really pretty flowers in that color that's going to fill up the rest of this wreath here in this pink section. The deep pinks. I love that one on there. Okay, so I completed every section with the colors, and it is absolutely exquisite. Now, you'll see, if you look at it from this side, you're probably going to have some of that floral foam showing from the side. You can go around and fill that up even more. If you have more flowers, I would just suggest that you be continuous with the color. If you're doing filling up an outer edge of the purple, then use the purple. If you're doing the blue, then use the blue. I did go around later, and you'll see that. But first I'm going to show you, I snipped off some of my trailing Swedish ivy, and I kind of bent it in kind of a curly configuration, and I just laid it across my wreath. And I love the look of this. I love the look of that Swedish ivy in this wreath, or in any wreath with florals. I love it so much. Now we're going to add some green elements to the wreath, and I think this really, really is a fabulous addition to this wreath. So I think I used about 4 pieces of that ivy. And now you can see I need to continue, once I turn it over, to really see where I'm at, what I still need to cover up. Now, I'm not worried about covering up the very flat bottom of the wreath. I'm only concerned about covering up the side where you could possibly see that floral foam wreath. So I'm going to go around with greenery and with any little florals that I might have left over. And I'm just going to tend to that outside of the ring. Now you can apply anything you like in this area, just as long as it somewhat coordinates with the section that you're in. But if you have nothing but greenery left over, that's fine too. You could just place some leaves all the way around the outer perimeter of that. This is not going to be a part of the wreath that's going to show that much, but I'm of the mindset that I think if you walk by a wreath, you do kind of see the sides. So why not just cover them? And then don't worry about the bottom or worry about it. It's up to you. You could cover the whole thing if you like. You could cover the bottom with leaves if you want to. You could cover the very bottom, the flat part of the bottom, with felt if you'd like. But you see, I'm just inserting flowers now. And I'm just going to bring the florals around the side. And it's difficult to see this when you're working on the top. But when you flip it over, that's when you can really tell what you need to do. Now, if I used any leaves or I didn't have a stem on any particular piece of floral, I used tacky glue. But what I do first, and this is the way I do it, I first glue everything on with hot glue. Then I go around with my tacky glue and I just insert dabs of glue underneath leaves, underneath flower petals, and I just give them that extra sticky factor, if you will. And that will be sure that they'll be held on there. So I completed that back process, or the side outer perimeter process. Now I'm just taking a nice long floral stem that I get at Hobby Lobby. I believe they're like 16 inches long. It's just a green floral wire. They're very sturdy. And I'm going to make a loop to hang my wreath. Now, I did this by deciding how I wanted my wreath to hang. And I decided I wanted the yellows at the top. So that's where I placed my floral wire. Because what kind of relationship they were expecting to have. Do you want to have sex with other people? No, it's not something that I think about. And then your wreath is all ready to hang. And there it is, your beautiful ombre wreath. And a little bit of that green is showing, but as you can see, it's on the bottom. Don't worry, if you don't like that, just take a piece of felt and cover it up. Okay, here we have it in the sunlight, gorgeous as can be. I hope you love this one. I think it's just divine. And all of the colors just graduate one into the next. Okay, you all. If you like this one, please give this video a thumbs up and leave me a message in the comments. I love receiving them. Okay, until next time, you all take care.